Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flange time with Flange Master Tal. My name's Graham, I'm your Flange Master of Tals as always, and as always I hope y'all are flanging it up and remembering to bring a towel. And today I hope you yet again are remembering to bring your legal towel and your epic Apple crazy legal battle towels, because that's what we're talking about yet again, because more going on, it got even crazier. And before we flange on into that, just a quick little call to action. Hit that subscribe button and that bell for notifications. That way you can always stay up to date with the awesome and always improved content from myself, Flange Master Tal. And that, let us flange on into it. So just a couple quick articles we'll go through super quick here. Epic. So basically what happened is Apple was like, yo Epic, you're violating our terms of service in all sorts of ways. We'll talk about the specifics of that shortly. So we're going to give you 14 days to quote unquote cure your breaches. I don't think they quite phrased it exactly like that, but they do mention curing breaches, but not in that specific phrasing anyways. They basically told Epic they got to cure their breaches. It makes me think of cool your britches for some reason, so I find it absolutely hilarious, but that's just... Anyways, so Epic's being required to cure their breaches within 14 days of the issuing of the letter, and they don't even have to give 14 days. They could have just said, you're done, without any time or notice or anything. They just could have been like, nah, you're done. It's not even in our terms of service to give you 14 days. We can just cancel. So that gets super interesting. And so basically, if Epic doesn't be in compliance with Apple's terms of service within 14 days, they lose all access to all developer tools, programs, etc., which basically cuts off all updates for Unreal Engine on anything Mac, which could potentially be really bad for Epic and maybe not so bad for Apple. It could be bad for Apple too, in just financial profits business kind of sense, because that's a lot of stuff that can't get updated now, and that's a lot of 30% cuts Apple won't get. That's a lot of developers that'll be moving on to other engines potentially. Even just that this has happened, now developers are going to be like, wow, I'm feeling kind of uncertain about Unreal Engine. Tim Sweeney is being a real erratic, unpredictable fucking person now. So do we even want to use Unreal Engine? It might be one of the best engines that can be purchased or licensed, but can we take a risk on all of a sudden losing access to Mac because Tim Sweeney is on some high horse vendetta mission plan he's got going on here? So it's interesting. It's very interesting, because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of developers are now like, do I even want to use Unreal Engine because I gotta deal with crap like this that I have nothing to do with? So yeah, basically how Epic has responded is predictably by filing an injunction to allow them to stay using all the development tooling, which kind of hilarious in of itself. So they have basically until August 28th to comply. The letter was sent August 14th. And I haven't found a link necessarily directly to it, but it's used as evidence in the lawsuit, so we can read the letter anyway. There's some excerpts, whatnot. Got another article from Washington Post. Basically goes over same stuff, but really the highlights are in the document. And also, of course, Hogue Law has been doing great content, great videos. He's an actual lawyer with an actual... He's also a business lawyer who actually deals with this kind of stuff, various degrees, mostly like in terms of contract law and that kind of thing. So he's a good person to go to a valid legal opinion for. That's where I've been going as my primary source. I've been hoping Legals. Hopefully we'll do a video pretty soon here, because he's really new. And basically Hogue Law is like, basically, to kind of summarize what he's been saying in his videos, is it kind of depends on the judge, kind of depends on the court, kind of depends on the government in power, because they have influence on the Department of Justice and stuff. So when it comes to trying to like predict or call who's gonna win, he's favoring Apple and Google winning, but that also comes with the caveat that it really depends on the judge. it really depends on the specific, or it depends on a lot of factors that just cannot be predicted. And he does lean towards Apple and Google winning this, although probably in the form of a settlement or dismissal or withdrawal, something like that. Probably won't wind up going all the way to the end. Probably a settlement or something, or withdrawal, whatever. Anyways, point is, a lot of the arguments made, he's basically shows why they're flawed and why there's problems with a lot of the arguments. We'll kind of go over some of that kind of stuff, but it is, I mean, it's a lot of hours of content to watch of Hogue Law's stuff, but I'd highly recommend it if you have the time. But if you don't, this is supposed to be like a good summary to save you some of that time. So basically, with this injunction they got going, they're basically kind of going on with the same kind of arguments for with the previous lawsuits, except there's some interesting differences, because now that this kind of encompasses all of Unreal Engine, they're kind of trying to move to a claim that they're super essential, and that I forget the term, and it I'm really derping. But basically they're saying that because the Apple, the iPhone, and Mac are essential platforms, that they're basically trying to argue in these documents that the iPhone and the Mac are such an essential platform that they need to allow just anyone to be able to go on there without any restriction. Except there's big problems with that, because so a business that invents something does have a right to control their invention. And like Hogue Law was saying in a previous video, talking about just the case in general, not specific to the injunction, almost any market can be reduced to a monopoly. And also, the Sherman Act doesn't outright make monopolies illegal. It makes behaving unreasonably in ways that harm consumers or markets. That's for a monopoly to do, well, any business to do. So basically, Epic's going on trying to be like, no, Apple's a bad guy here. They're acting maliciously. They're acting unfairly. They're discriminating. Except that kind of all falls apart when Apple only has like 25% or a little bit less of the total market share when it comes to phones and iPhone operating systems. I think Android owns most of the market by a large shot, but they allow side loadings and they're more open, although not completely open. We'll get into an interesting analogy here. Or at the end, Hogue Law brought up like a carnival analogy and Epic selling popcorn. I think I have a better analogy, and I'll float that at him on Twitter and see what he thinks. He's been quite responsive on Twitter. He's just, yeah, I've got lots of great things to say about Hogue Law. He's like really super awesome. Anyways, he does great content. Highly recommend it. Just can't say it enough. He's pretty much my primary source, so I super want to shout him out. And basically, also what we got going on here is a lot of emotional based arguments and rhetoric that Richard Hogue of Hogue Law basically says isn't really going to fly in court very well, isn't really going to sway a judge, and kind of more for PR. It's more to get like people mad, get the kids riled up, and that kind of thing. So one of the interesting points that comes up here is Apple's terms of service and all that. So basically, Apple's like, yo, Fortnite, you've got hidden features. You didn't tell us about this. You agreed in your contract to tell us about this kind of stuff. You can't have hidden features. You can't have hidden anything. You need to tell us everything. You gotta be specific in your notes and your updates. And basically Fortnite was like, or well, Epic, Tim Sweeney was like, well, the code's always been there. You just didn't activate it. You should have known. You approved it before. And all what it does is it talks to a server and asks the server if multiple payment processing is valid, and then does things differently if there's multiple choices. And it's just there wasn't a multiple choice until now. And Apple's like, yo, no, that's a hidden feature, Epic. No, you can't do that. So we'll get into that when we get to the letter. That's part of the evidence. It's a lot to go through here. This document's like over 100 freaking pages. Anyways, just because it comes up before we get to the actual terms of service and the letter and all that, to talk about that more specifically, this is kind of like ridiculous. Like Hogue Law, Richard Hogue of Hogue Law was like commenting on how this is a bit, just a little bit ridiculous. They're taking Facebook and Twitter posts and just throwing them in there. Like their Twitter posts I've read on Twitter, like trying to research and investigate this. They're trying to be like, oh, look at all the consumers that have been harmed. They can't play their precious Fortnite now. Fortnite's so essential. And it's like, yo, Epic, it's a video game. Like I love video games. I'm all about video games. But you know, if video games were gone, I'd deal with it. It would suck, but I'd have to deal with it because they're a luxury. They're an extra. They can add value in all sorts of ways, but are they essential? Let's not go down that argument road. We can talk about that in comments or in chat during a live stream or something, but I wouldn't exactly say Fortnite or any video games essential. Although, I mean, I could see arguments otherwise. Anyways, so this is really the interesting stuff, is the letters where they're like, hey, these are the things you violated. And this is where it gets interesting, important, interesting listening to Hogue Law and his content, because he's pretty much like, well, they signed this agreement, they signed this contract, they agreed to this, then they just outright violated it, and now they're trying to pretend like Apple's the bad guy, even though they violated a contract they agreed to. We might not think Apple's doing these things in a way that's best for their business or best for consumers, but is it illegal? Is it actionable in court? And Hogue Law is basically saying, no, probably not. Kind of depends on the judge, how they hear the arguments and how it plays out in court. But at the face value of the court documents we have right now, not really. So, you know, and that's the thing. It seems like they're actually being, at least from Apple's perspective, I'm not saying I agree necessarily. Well, I don't know. I've got all sorts of mixed feelings about this. I've said it before. I don't think Apple, the way they do their app store, is always the best. Like, there's a float plane example where they're having all sorts of troubles that are just absolutely ridiculous, and they're doing their best to figure it out. And all sorts of apps that have had issues that have digital online sales. So, you know, maybe I think Apple could revise how they're handling some things, but it is within their right to choose how their app store works. I might not like how they do it, but as long as they're not being outright anti-competitive, which that could be questioned, you know, they can do what they want. And one of the big part of this is Epic is trying to argue that Apple's being unfair and discriminatory, but then we come to stuff like this letter, and it's like, well, if anything, they're actually like kind of giving you maybe a little bit of leeway. They don't have to give them 14 calendar days. And it's interesting too, because they got various other people to submit declarations and stuff. Anyway, so they include the whole developer license agreement. We are not going to go through all this. And even finding the part that Richard Hogue pointed out is going to be a little bit tricky. I don't think we might just happen to run across it. It's dense stuff. It'd take a while to go through it and like really pick out this portions. But anyways, there's a part in here that Richard Hogue pointed out where they can terminate this contract at any time just for convenience, just because they don't want to. And it just says straight up, they can just terminate for any reason they don't want to with 30 days notice either party. So that's the thing. There's nothing permanently binding either party to this contract. If they're just like, nah, we just want to move on, we just don't want to do this anymore, 30 days written notice, done. No penalties, no nothing, just done, just 30 days. And when it comes to violations, I'm not making any mistakes, which I'm human, we all make mistakes. I've got that little bit of self-doubt, being like, are you remembering properly? Is for violations, they don't have to give any time. They can just be like, bam, you're done. So it's not like, you know, with the 14 days is kind of being generous, if anything, which might work towards Apple's favor when it comes to court. Anyways, it's quite the developer terms of service. And that's the thing, is going into court, generally, again, generally, some but not all, caveat here, from what Richard Hogue is saying, generally, when they've agreed to a contract that they should have read and known what they're agreeing to, and then they intentionally violate it, that's not going to go very well for them in court. Oh, severability. The court of to be. Oh no, that's different. But we are in the right area, I think. It's not worth hunting down that very specific. Anyways, Hoglaw pointed it out. We can just rely on that. So, anyways, so it gets very interesting here, especially when they're like Epic's going for all this like PR approach that probably won't be effective in court, and with how high end these law firms are, I'm like, I'm kind of, and especially the way Richard Hogue talks about it, I'm like, I wonder what it was like when Tim Sweeney was consulting with these law firms about this. I wonder how often the law firms were like, yo, Tim, your approach might not be very effective here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tim Sweeney's like, I'm paying you the money, do it my way. That's totally speculation on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some contentious arguments with the law firm about like, Tim, this is not the best way to go about this. And Tim being like, Tim Sweeney, of course, being like, no, this is the way I want to do it. I have the moral high ground. That's my speculation and projection. I don't know how true that is. That speculation is. Anyways, that's kind of I wonder how much of a factor arguments over how to approach this were when Tim Sweeney was consulting with the law firms. Anyways, it's a lot of shit in there. The developer terms of service. That's very intense. So anyways, so but it's like, it's very revealing. I don't think a lot of this information is very public, so there's a lot of interesting info for people to sort through, which we're not going to do. Anyways, more like they like actual like tweets, and like not necessarily the best tweets either. I think that guy was being sarcastic. I don't think that guy was serious about it. But like, I mean, I'm sure it's not the first time social media posts have been it's certainly far from the first time social media posts have been cited in any sort of legal action, but like what is Epic doing here? Like, I mean, I'm no judge, but I feel like a judge would read through this part and just roll their fucking eyes, like, till they spun like a fucking cartoon. Like mind-blowing. But like that. Well, go get a fucking Nintendo Switch, kid. You can get them used for like not too bad a price. Get a job and save up some money. I mean, I don't mean to be a dick or anything, but like, although it's not that simple to get a job and save up some money right now necessarily, but anyways. But like, you know, there's just stuff like this where he's got like the vice president of engineering weighing in, and like what's this, I can't say the word technical director of engineering from Epic making a little affidavit or something. Anyways, here it is, the letter from Apple. This is the one we're trying to get to before I get to the mall metaphor. Anyways, so app is in violation for these. Your app unlocks or enables additional functionality with mechanisms other than the App Store, which is not appropriate for the App Store. Holy fuck, can't speak. Specifically, we found that users are able to purchase digital goods with external purchase mechanisms in your app with the Epic Direct Payment feature. See the attached screenshots for details. Next steps to resolve this issue, please remove the Epic Direct Payment from your app. And that's the thing. At least in court, this will work. At least according to Richard Hogue, if I'm getting it all correct, should work to Apple's advantage because it established, yeah, we're being fair, these are our rules, we're enforcing them equally and equitably, even if I might think they go too far with some of the rules, that it's too exclusive to certain apps, like Floatplane's the best example. Like, they should be on the Apple App Store, like, you know, and maybe Apple should Speaking's difficult today. Anyways, and a thought I've had is maybe Apple should step back and think, well, maybe when it comes to smaller apps and smaller developers that do have a harder time with this 30% fee, maybe we can come up with a program to help them out, help them, kind of get flanged on into it. And, maybe Apple can step back and be like, well, maybe there are some things we can do to, help out smaller apps and developers and kind of have like a system or a process they go through where eventually, once they build up, they will pay the full 30%, or who knows. Anyways, I'm hoping this does somehow create change with Apple, because yeah, they are too restrictive, my personal opinion. But is this the way to deal with it? I don't think so, especially when what's at stake is potentially doing things that could be very bad for everyone. Like, we don't really want walled gardens to end. I do want more openness, but just force everyone to be completely open, I don't think that's very good. Anyways, so they criticize generic statements and stuff. So basically, they're like, get in line with our rules, the contract that you signed and agreed to, and then everything's cool. It's interesting what Richard Hogue has been saying, because he's been saying the judge will effectively split the baby, which is a biblical reference. I can't remember was it King David? I don't remember. There's biblical king who is like, settled disputes. People would come to him and he's basically the judge of like all the biggest disputes. I forget the details, but the basic idea is, two people came to King David or whoever it was, and they're like, oh, we can't decide who's the actual parent of this baby. So King David's like, okay, we'll cut the baby in half and you each get half the baby. And the people were like, oh, what the fuck? What kind of solution is that? It's like, you guys see how dumb you're being? And that's kind of what we're getting to here. So Richard Hogue's assessment was pretty much what he thinks a judge is most likely to do, is basically try and roll the situation back to before the dispute and be like, okay, y'all go back to before the dispute. Epic, you take that extra payment shit out. You get in compliance with the rules. And you all get on board with that status quo until the big antitrust case, which could take up to a freaking decade. It could take a long time if they don't settle or withdraw or whatever. That thing can take a long time. So you two just mind the status quo. Get your shit together, stop being children, and move on with business and life until the antitrust stuff gets settled. Which seems to probably be the most reasonable one, is like, hey, you guys can still do business. Just follow the contract you signed and we'll deal with the other stuff, because really it's not that critically. No one's really suffering that badly for it. There are some unfortunate messed up situations with smaller developers and apps on the Apple App Store, but that's not like, it's not a critical thing. It's not like, people won't get medicine or be unable to vote or have their life be put in jeopardy because they can't get a small developer's app on the App Store. So it's like, there's nothing like of that level where like people's lives or livelihoods are at stake. They're multi-billion-dollar companies that can find other ways to make money. Like, for all the time and effort and money Epic's putting on this crap, they could just make their own damn phone and operating system for the phone and compete straight up. Like, it'd probably be cheaper just to make their own phone and phone OS and be like, Epic phone, Epic app, it's all Epic at Epic. Like, this just, like, I would love to have a better idea of what's going on with Tim Sweeney's thought process behind all this. Because I think I kind of think he might have read the 48 Laws of Power and got the wrong freaking idea from it. You're not actually supposed to be all 48 Laws of Power with that book. You're supposed to defend against 48 Laws of Power, motherfuckers, with the 48 Laws of Power book. Anyways, so that pretty much covers it up. And I wanted to end on an analogy I've come up. We'll MS Paint it because that's always... So... let us brush that a bit bigger. So, whoa, what's up with Epic Paint? Paint's having a frame rate issue. What? Okay, let's try this again. Somehow, uh, taking has never happened to me before. Wow. Anyways, we'll just roll with it. But anyways, so what we're drawing is we're drawing malls. We got Apple Mall. We'll do text instead of writing. Apple Mall. Apple Mall. Google Mall. Then we'll use the shape tool. So there's all these stores within the mall. So it's just for illustration purposes. We're not going to make it look like a real mall with like organization. Anyways, it's just to give you the idea. There's all these like all the little boxes. These are stores within the mall of various sizes, etc., etc., etc. So basically, the phones and app stores are kind of like malls. You have this, someone builds a mall, and then they're like, hey, shops, come in and rent out space, but it's going to cost you money for the space because I built this thing, I spent a lot of investment in it, and I kind of got to get my investment back, make some money off of it. So you guys got to pay for space. Space is a commodity, it has value. And when I have this like mall with all these extra commodities and things, so you're not just paying for the space, you're paying for the support of the space. You're paying for repair, maintenance, etc., etc., HVAC, water, etc. So let's just say, just for the sake of argument, all that stuff's included in the bill. But instead of just saying, oh, we're going to take like $1,000 a month, our rent for our mall space is 30% of your income. So 30% of your income, and then you've got your space. As long as you follow our rules, you can rent the space in our mall. 30%, there you go. So that's basically what we have. I think I should have drawn the Google Mall bigger. So let's say we have this super big space called Epic Mall. Epic rented out a huge space. They've got thing within their space they call Fortnite. Here, we'll even put Fortnite in. So they've got this thing, and they're like, shit. Okay, wait, one caveat. Wait, one little thing, not a caveat, but one little detail we gotta add in. So there's the difference between these two malls. Apple's like super high end, and they're like, so the mall's got their parking lot. I suck at paint drawing. So each mall has its parking lot. So we'll just draw a P for parking. So each mall has its parking lot. And you know how some malls will like let farmers markets and stuff set up in the parking lot and that kind of thing, or some sort of like niche kind of tent mall where it's not a really big deal, and the premise is, okay, we'll allow this farmers market or niche little tent market thing, we'll allow all that stuff because ultimately the idea is it draws business towards our mall. Because people go to the farmer's market or wherever, they're like, shit, I'm at the mall, I'll go spend some money at the mall. And, in this hypothetical scenario, any sales they get 30% of. So we'll just draw like a little farmer's market. We'll put F for farmer's market. But Apple is like, no, we're super high end. Those farmers markets, they can be a little bit sketchy and unregulated. They can be fine, but you know what? We're not going to allow the farmers market at the Apple Mall. Google, they allow the farmers market. If you want a farmers market, you can go to the Google Mall. So basically what that represents is like, how Samsung has its app store, Asus used to have, kind of all the phone manufacturers used to have their own app store, but no one really used them. Google Play Store is better. And hell, we'll even like slip it in between the two. So we'll put an A for Amazon because they've got their Fire tablets and stuff, and they've got their own app store, but it kind of sucks. So they're kind of like the strip mall in between the two that's like kind of sketchy, has convenience stores and stuff, kind of little pizza shops, but not a big deal. Some people kind of go there, but they go to the big malls because that's where all the good shit. So Apple's like, no farmers markets, and Google's like, no, we'll allow farmers markets. So that's like the alternate app stores, and we'll include sideloading stuff. So basically, let's zoom out here and add some more canvas. But basically, Epic is like, I want to set up my own mall in your parking lot because you're not using the space. There's not always cars there. I'm outgrowing your mall, but I don't want to build my own mall. That's too expensive. So I'm just going to build the Epic Mall, Epic Mini Mall, your parking lot. Oh, what? You don't like that? That's anti-competitive. I have all right to build my own mini mall, your parking lot, to take advantage of what you've already built without building my own thing. When you think about it like that, it seems pretty fucked up. And that's the thing. I'm not necessarily with how Google and Apple run their app stores in all regards. They've definitely done some things that are kind of shady in and of themselves. But does that justify what Epic is doing? No. Go build your own damn mall, Epic. If you want what you want, go build your own mall. Go build your own phone. Go build your own app store, which they already have ready to go. So it's like, build your own mall. Go make your own phone. Go make your own, or at least your own phone OS for Android phones, because that's the thing. Android phones could easily be loading a different OS. But it's not that simple either. But, you know, they can build their own devices and their own operating system. They've got the money. They've got the resources. Like, it wouldn't be, like, if anyone's in position to be doing such a thing, Epic is one of the people that's in position to be doing such a thing. So it's like, why do you got to build a mini mall in their parking lot? A mini mall, and also not just saying that, they're saying all these rules you have to restrict people, like, oh, that you say you don't want farmers markets in your parking lot. Well, I say that's anti-competitive, or Epic says that's anti-competitive. So guess what, Apple? I'm going to go to the government and say you have to let anyone that wants a store in your mall. You can't pick and choose. If some junkie wants to just has the money and wants to open up space and just does nothing with it other than harass people, you have to tolerate that up to the point of them doing something illegal. Okay, maybe not the best example, but you get where I'm going there. Is like, you know, they don't want just anyone setting up shop. I don't want just anyone setting up shop in any mall or any app store. There's reasons to have filtering and restrictions and all that stuff. It's not good just to have an open free-for-all. Do I want platforms to be more open than they are? Yes, but do I want them to be a complete free-for-all of openness like Tim Sweeney seems to want? No! That seems insane! I don't want just anyone to be able to just put whatever they want on a phone. Then we get hacks and all sorts of malware, and it'd be a disaster, potentially. And there's this kind of theory out there that, like, oh, the open market's perfect. People just pick and choose what they want, and they won't tolerate the nasty stuff. The reality has kind of shown that to not be... Well, the thing is, the open market's chosen these. There are other alternatives, and people have not chosen them. They've chosen Google and Apple. And has Google and Apple abused that market dominance in some ways? Yes. Have they in the ways Epic and Tim Sweeney claim in their legal documents? Doesn't seem so, at least to me, or to Hogue Law. Is it in a situation where the government should just open everything up because their market dominance is suppressing competition? No. Are they suppressing competition in ways that need to be dealt with? In some cases, yes. But does that mean that everything just needs to be opened up for anyone to do whatever they want and just access whenever they want at whatever whim they feel like? No. And there's also another issue that hasn't really come up. What kind of trade secrets and secret parts of the technology would have to be revealed to enable people such things? Because if, let's say this goes to an extreme where the courts are like, you know what? Phones have become such an essential device that it needs to be like a PC. Same with Apple computers. Any computer, any electronic device, anyone needs to be able to install whatever operating system they want on their device. Well, to be able to do that, now they need to tell people things about the device that would otherwise be secret. Like Apple's infamous for the whole thing where the FBI wanted access private information on phones, and Apple's like, nope, we don't do that. If you guys figure it out on your own, that's cool, but we're not going to help you. And the FBI really couldn't compel them to unlock the devices or get any of this secret information. They wound up getting the information they wanted. But the point I'm getting to is that level of security that people actually desire from Apple as a product and service would now be impossible. And this is where it really gets interesting, because what it seems like Epic wants would actually be bad for everyone. Even though I do very much want these platforms to open up and be more open, the big picture long-term consequences of complete total mandatory openness are not good. And the thing is, there are open operating systems and open platforms, etc., etc., and they're not very popular for a reason, because often when it comes to these open things, they're just not as good as a user experience. They require more technical knowledge to navigate properly, and that's totally fine. But just the nature of how people work and how business works, and taking all these factors into account objectively, it's just not realistic. And it kind of sucks. It's not an answer I'm very happy with or I like, but it's kind of the reality of things. And it's going to take people changing as a whole in a bigger picture sense for that to change. And you can't just force that. And like, on a basic premise, it seems hypocritical. Force openness on people because things are too restrictive. So now they have to do things they don't want to for the sake of openness. And it kind of seems like it's kind of ideologically working against itself. And maybe that's just me, but I have a hard time with Tim Sweeney and how he's going about things, which is extra frustrating for me personally, because normally I would be on board with this kind of stuff. Normally I would be like, yeah, open shit up, yeah, this needs to change. Yeah, the status quo isn't good, it isn't healthy, I think it is a toxic status quo we have now. But is battling toxicity with even more toxicity the way to deal with toxicity? And my answer is no. No, you don't deal with toxicity with more toxicity. Like, this is not the way to go about things, Tim Sweeney. You don't get more toxic about it to deal with it being toxic. And it's just... yeah, anyways, I've got a lot to say about this topic, as y'all can tell. Wrap this up, though. I hope the mall metaphor was useful and added value. As always, I hope this content added value. If I added value, give me that thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me that thumbs down. But if you give me that thumbs down, do me a quick favor and give me some constructive feedback so that I can improve and do better. And with that, yeah, let me know what you think in comments or in a live stream or on social media. Definitely want to flange up that discussion, know what you all think. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you know of some other legal opinions, etc., etc.? Anyways, flange it up. And as always, remember to tell, and I'll see you next episode.